Hey everyone, have you ever felt this pressure to have your entire life figured out by the time you're 25?
Oh, yeah.
It's like this crazy expectation.
It really is.
And that's actually what we're going to be diving into today.
Awesome.
That whole early bloomer pressure.
Yeah.
And we're going to be unpacking Rich Karlgaard's book Late Bloomers,
Okay.
which really kind of throws shade on society's obsession with this whole early achievement thing.
Right.
So yeah, buckle up. I think we've all been sold a myth or two about this.
Absolutely.
Well,
It's so ingrained in our culture, this idea that you have to have reached some level of success by a certain age,
right.
or else you're somehow failing.
Yeah, and it's everywhere. Like you see it in magazines, on TV, even Forbes.
Oh, totally.
And Karlgaard's the publisher there. It's
Yeah.
like they're constantly showcasing these young superstars.
Mhm.
But what about those of us who, maybe took a little bit more of a scenic route?
Yeah. And it's not just the media either. The pressure starts so early. Think about kids today. The SATs, college applications, this need to be like a prodigy at everything.
It's so much pressure.
Yeah. It's a lot for anyone to
It
handle.
really is. And it can have some pretty serious consequences.
For sure.
Karlgaard talks about this high school near Stanford
Okay.
where the pressure was so intense that some students actually committed suicide.
Oh, wow. It's just heartbreaking.
It is.
The book actually mentions that in one academic year, 42 students at that school were getting counseling for suicidal thoughts.
That's heavy.
Yeah, the pressure's just immense.
It's scary how much this idea kind of seeps into everything, and it doesn't stop after high school either. It follows you right into the workplace.
Yeah.
Ageism is just rampant in so many industries.
Yeah, you hit a certain age and it's like you become invisible.
Exactly.
Karlgaard even mentions this one guy in Silicon Valley who got a hair transplant when he was only 26
Oh my gosh.
because he was worried about looking too old.
Are you serious? It's like we're living in some reverse Benjamin Button world.
I know, right?
It's kind of funny, but also kind of terrifying at the same time.
It really is.
But seriously, how did we get here? Why are we so obsessed with this idea of early achievement?
Well, Karlgaard points to a few things. The rise of meritocracy is a big one. We've come to value test scores and college rankings above almost everything else. So there's this immense pressure to prove your worth through these achievements at a younger and younger age.
It's like we've created this system that rewards a very specific and narrow definition of success, and it's all about speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get those achievements and get them fast.
Right?
And there's a whole industry built around this anxiety, too.
Mm.
Test prep courses, college admissions consultants. It's a billion-dollar machine,
Wow.
all designed to get kids ahead.
Mm.
But it's all fueled by this fear of not achieving early enough.
And then you have social media, which just throws gasoline on the whole fire. I mean, people like Mark Zuckerberg founding Facebook at 22.
Oh, yeah. He's like the poster child for early success.
Exactly. And Zuckerberg is really vocal about his belief that younger people are just inherently more innovative.
Right. Which, it might have some truth to it, but it just reinforces this pressure to achieve early.
It's like we're being told, if you don't peak in your 20s, you somehow miss the boat.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of thinking that Karlgaard is challenging in his book. He suggests this obsession with early blooming might actually be working against our natural development.
Wait, really? Tell me more about that. That's where things start to get interesting for me.
So he gets into the whole science of brain development.
Mm.
And it turns out our brains don't fully mature until we're like 25.
What?
Yeah, specifically the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's responsible for all that good stuff. Decision-making, planning, impulse control, it's still developing well into our 20s.
So wait, you're telling me we're expected to make these huge life choices like career decisions, relationships, all that, before our brains are even fully developed?
It does seem a bit backward, right?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
And Karlgaard argues that this later development of the prefrontal cortex might actually be a good thing for late bloomers.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, they've had more time for life experiences to shape their worldview, their values, their perspectives.
So instead of just jumping into things, they're more likely to be intentional with their choices.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he uses himself as an example. He was kind of a mediocre student and didn't find his passion until later in life.
Right. He had all those odd jobs after college. I love that story about him being a security guard
Oh, yeah.
and realizing he was basically doing the same job as the guard dog at the lumberyard next door.
It's funny, but it makes a good point. We'll put these timelines on success, but everyone's journey is different.
That's so true. So what about these late bloomers then? What makes them so unique? I know Karlgaard talks about 6 specific advantages.
He does. And these advantages are often overlooked, especially in a society that's so obsessed with youth.
All right, spill the tea. What are these secret weapons of the late bloomer?
Well, first up, you've got wisdom and experience.
Yeah.
They've simply lived more life, made more mistakes, learned more lessons.
They've got that seasoned veteran wisdom.
Right. They've seen how things play out in the real world.
And that leads into resilience, too, right?
Exactly. They've faced setbacks and failures and come out stronger on the other side. They know how to handle adversity.
They've got that grit.
They do. And then there's focus and discipline. Late bloomers often discover their passions later, so their drive tends to be much more intense.
It's like their motivation comes from a deeper place.
Yeah, it's self-directed. They're not chasing someone else's definition of success.
They're all in on their own path.
And because they've had more time to develop their emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
they tend to have more compassion and empathy.
They've got that emotional maturity, you can just tell.
And then there's originality and creativity, because they're not as bound by convention. Late bloomers are often the ones who think outside the box.
They're the innovators, the ones who challenge the status quo.
And finally, late bloomers often have a deep sense of humility and gratitude. They don't take their success for granted.
They appreciate the journey. They're not all ego-driven.
Right, and Colgard makes a really interesting point about how companies are missing out by overlooking older workers.
Yeah, it's like, why wouldn't you want that kind of experience on your team?
Exactly. But the question is, are these advantages enough? Do late bloomers just sit back and wait for success to fall into their lap?
That's what I'm wondering. It's great to have these potential advantages, but it's not like they guarantee success, right? So it's not like you just sit back and wait for the magic to happen.
Definitely not. Colgard really emphasizes that age doesn't just magically guarantee success.
Right.
You got to put in the work, make smart choices, have a plan.
Okay, so what's the plan? What are we talking about here?
Well, he outlines 3 key strategies that can really help late bloomers thrive.
Okay, lay them on me. I'm ready to unlock my late bloomer superpowers.
The first one's kind of interesting. It's called quitting with intention.
Quitting with intention. Okay, that sounds a little counterintuitive.
Right, but it's basically about being willing to let go of goals that aren't really truly yours, even if they seem like the right ones, you know?
So, like, it's okay to walk away from something even if everyone else is telling you it's a great opportunity.
Exactly. If it's not fulfilling, if it's not, it's not lighting you up inside. Colgard uses the example of Daniel James Brown, the guy who wrote The Boys in the Boat.
Oh, yeah, I love that book.
He actually dropped out of high school.
Really?
Yeah, he had really bad anxiety. Traditional school just wasn't working for him.
Wow.
But by quitting that path, he found a learning environment that worked for him.
Yeah.
And he obviously went on to do amazing things.
So sometimes you got to step off the beaten path to find your own way.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so what's the next strategy?
It's all about finding your niche. So, actively seeking out those environments where your strengths are valued.
Not just chasing what's trendy or what everyone else is doing.
Right? It's about playing to your strengths. Finding that place where you really shine.
So basically figure out what makes you you.
Yeah.
And find a place that appreciates that.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to be different.
Love it.
Wow.
Okay, and last but not least.
This one's tenacious persistence.
Okay, so once you find your path, go after it with everything you've got.
Yep. This is where that resilience we talked about comes in handy.
Right, because it's not always going to be easy.
No, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's about having that long-term vision and just never giving up.
Even when things get tough.
So basically, don't give up on your dreams just because you haven't made it by a certain age.
Exactly. There's no expiration date on success.
I love that. Man, I'm feeling so much better about this whole late bloomer thing now.
Good. I'm glad.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener? Feeling a little less pressure to have it all figured out right now?
Hopefully. The big takeaway here is that it's never too late to blossom. Success doesn't have a timeline, and we all have the potential to be late bloomers.
It's about embracing your own journey, your own pace, learning from your experiences and pursuing your passions with all you've got.
Here's something to think about. If you could redefine success on your own terms, what would that look like for you?
Ooh, that's a great question to ponder. What does success truly mean to you? Forget about those societal expectations. Go out there and create your own definition. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of late bloomers. Remember, it's never too late to bloom.